Let me thank you all for gathering here this evening. It's a real pleasure to see you. It's a real pleasure to see those of you who've come home. So welcome home. We are happy to have you here. Karibuni nyumbani. And let me thank my team and the organizers for putting this together. I'm really proud of you and very excited to work with you. Let me also thank the leadership of the Diaspora, specifically the team or the leaders of the delegation that have come down to Kenya for this season. I recognize Sam Rono, I recognize Masika Manja, I also recognize Dr. Koyabe from the Diaspora Technical Working Group. Before you kill me, I know you're all leaders in your own right, so I recognize all of you diaspora leaders. Asanteni sana kwa kuja nyumbani, karibuni tena na tena. All right, so it's a real pleasure to be here, to reflect with you on this Invent, Innovate, and Implement Diaspora Conference and Dinner. Allow me, from the very outset, to bring greetings from His Excellency the President, who is a big supporter of not just Diaspora, but Diaspora conferences, and had specifically asked that we hold this, so please accept those greetings. But also, yes, please, you may clap, thank you. But also allow me to convey the warm greetings and apologies of our minister, the Prime Cabinet Secretary, who very much wanted to host you and very much had wanted to be here, but had to leave. You might have seen on social media that he's been in Seoul, in South Korea, on an official visit, and so he's unable to be here with us. But again, I'm grateful for us all to be able to come here and speak together. I'm very tempted to walk away from my written comments and get in a lot of trouble with my team, but I'm very tempted, and I'm the boss, so I'm gonna do exactly that. Okay, so I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. I want to talk about what I really want to talk about. And what they had written for me is really good stuff. It also has to do a lot with what we have seen here today. So I want to take a couple of minutes and just talk about some things that some of you have heard me speak about before, which is the promise of the diaspora. If you have already heard me speak about this, especially the women I was with in the morning, please don't give away the... Okay? All right. So I want to speak about 2 or 3 diaspora stories. And for a lovely dinner, I want to ask some questions. Can you tell me what of serious significance happened, of global significance happened around 70 AD? Something of global significance that happened around 70 AD. My team, put your hands down. 70 AD. 70 Anno Domino. Sorry? Are you saying Stone Age? Are you serious? Historians. Oh, thank God. Yes, in the back. The collapse of Rome. Not quite. Not you, Mercy. Anybody else? Sitaki kuambia, we jaribu. Yes.
Something to do with diaspora.
Yes, it is a big significant moment in diaspora.
Okay, total guess. But I think the Jews were moved into Europe or something.
Okay, so B plain to B minus, but I'll take it. Okay, so it was the sacking of Jerusalem, right? So Rome overran Israel, as it then was, and Jerusalem, and scattered the people who lived there. And they remained scattered for the next, yes, for the next almost 2,000 years, right? until the State of Israel was re-established on the territory where it currently sits in 1948. How is it possible for a nation to exist where there is no territory? Scholars of international relations, of international law, will tell you that one of the critical elements of a state is what? Is territory, isn't it? And yet you have a state being, quote unquote, reborn after some 2,000 or so years because of the power of the diaspora. The entire state existed for almost 2,000 years purely in its diaspora. Why is this important? Diasporas have the capacity to carry ideas, culture, nationhood, religion, whatever it is that makes a nation, and carry those things completely in the diaspora for years and give the promise of rebirth. Okay? First story. Second story. How many of us here have had or have had a friend or family member or know somebody who has gone to India for treatment? Okay. Many of us can agree that the Indian healthcare system is pretty good. What maybe all of us might not know is that that healthcare system was actually built by their diaspora, using diaspora investment, diaspora skill, technology, transfer. So the two panels that we just had here on investment and on bringing back skill, knowledge, and technology transfer, and have built what is now one of the largest and most important healthcare systems around the world. Okay? Third story. When I was growing up, when people wanted to be rude to you, it might be a function of where I come from. When you said something that was irrelevant, they would tell you, how does that affect the price of? Who? Okay, yes, cocoa in Ghana, right? They would ask, how does that affect the price of cocoa in Ghana? Because everybody knows that cocoa is a pillar of Ghana's economy, right? We all know this, yes? Do we all know this? Okay, we all know this. But did you know that some 150 years ago, cocoa was actually introduced into Ghana by, there you go. I see now you're getting it, yes. By a returning diasporan. They smuggled it in, but that's neither here nor there. And that's how an entire industry grew. Why am I telling you these stories? We are who we tell ourselves we are in many ways, but also people, nations, communities, civilizations are a lot about the stories they tell themselves about who they are. So, this is what diasporas around the world have done. They have caused the rebirth of a nation. They have built a world-class healthcare industry. They have built an entire economy. And we could talk about, what Korea has done. We could talk about what China has done. We could talk about various things, various other countries. There are many stories. There's a story of the Ethiopians and their Grand Renaissance Dam, and all of these stories. This story that I'm telling usually ends with me asking, what is a story we are going to tell about Kenya's diaspora? The person who has my job in 30 years, or a person who has a job like mine somewhere in 30 years in another part of the world should be able to include Kenya in a story like mine and say, do you know X about Kenya? Do you know that the tech industry in Kenya, for example, was built by the diaspora, and so on? This is my challenge to you. Challenge accepted? Challenge accepted? Okay. We can call that the KICC declaration. Challenge accepted. I'm excited to be having these conversations. All the conversations that we had, all the panelists and the dreaming and the reflection and the we need to do better at this and we are not doing so well at this, and those reflections, because it is in moments like this that we are able to grow. But it's also in moments like this we are able to speak with ourselves and say, I would like us to do this better. Perhaps this is not working, let us abandon this and proceed. So I'm grateful, truly, to be a part of this conversation. I'm grateful to be able to sit here and challenge us and ask us, what are we going to be known for? I'd like to hear some suggestions. Where's the team from Uganda? Kenyans from Uganda? Just raise your hands, I know you're here. Some of you in the past have told me we're going to be known for banana wine, and so on, and various other things. I want you to discuss among yourselves and decide what that's going to look like. But I want to end my remarks with an invitation. I have a lot of fun in my job. Many of you probably already know this. I think it's fairly obvious. I really enjoy this. And I've had the opportunity to speak with many people who do what I do in other parts of the world. And we share the same challenges. And when we sit, we talk about the fact that, diaspora never register. Diaspora are so suspicious of government, they will never give us their information. It's not just you, it's diaspora around the world. We know, when we sit in our back rooms, we talk about, but you already know you're doing these things, right? We talk about these things and so on. But one of the things that we have tried to do as Kenya, and I think we are having a lot of success at, is actually changing how the world around us looks at its diaspora, how it responds to its diaspora, how it structures its programs for its diaspora. We've just now at the EAC pushed as Kenya, and we've had a lot of success with our neighbors to create an EAC diaspora policy, which I believe we're going to be passing in a few months' time. By the end of this year, it will have passed through the EAC. You can clap for us, clap for us. Okay. So, but what am I trying to say here? Kenya wants to lead as far as diaspora is concerned from its heart. Why? We have had a change of direction over the space of several years. I'll give you a very quick history lesson. Today, as I was training some diplomats who are about to go on posting, I told this story that 30 years ago, probably, how many of you, where's the team from the UK? And why you in, I've seen some of you, did you ever go to the High Commission 30 years ago? In those days, we probably were not very friendly to diaspora. Have I lied? Yeah? Some time back, you were probably considered dissidents. But it's part of the journey of the diaspora. If you were to trace Kenya's story with its diaspora, maybe we could go as far back as our grandfathers going to fight in the world wars in Burma, in Abyssinia. Some of you, your grandparents fought in these wars, yes? No? Yes? My grandfathers did, yeah? And were those our first moments in the diaspora, perhaps, right? That's part of our migration story. Shortly after that, you had people like Jomo Kenyatta and others who would go to the UK and do some studying and stay there, and those were sort of some of the beginnings of the colony of Kenya and its subjects beginning to interact with the rest of the world, right? So early beginnings of the diaspora. And then, closer and closer to the moment of decolonization and the birth of the Republic, then you begin to see the Eliud Mathews and the others sort of going to the UK quite a lot to discuss how we're going to decolonize and all of that. And then around the birth of the Republic, we see something very interesting, organized airlifts. Yes? So you start seeing the Mboya Kennedy airlifts, where you had lots and lots of people beginning to move to the US in particular to go and study. And part of those were actually Obama Sr. and the others who went on those airlifts. And then we enter a period of that really created the train tracks on which the US diaspora probably has traveled on, which is this idea of people going away to school. Then the 70s, perhaps the 80s and closer to the early 90s, as we started to struggle towards multipartyism, we started to see an era of political migration, right? Exiles, right? People left because they did not agree with the government of the day. And then when I was growing up at some point in the maybe mid-90s, we started seeing a return of people going back for something we used to call Akina Sam Ireri, further studies. And he said it exactly how we used to say it in those days. You went away for further studies, as we used to call it. Okay. And that sort of went on. And about 10, 15 years ago, we entered a different mood. All of these tracks still exist, but we entered a different mood, which we are now seeing a lot of labor mobility, and Irene Karari has spoken about it, right? You start to see something interesting happening here in the Middle East that wasn't happening before. And people are not going to their traditional spaces in the US, in the UK, in Europe, Canada, Australia. Something new is happening here. But as all of these movements are happening, we also have changes that are happening here at home, legal changes. The biggest one would be the 2010 Constitution, right? The lawyers among us will tell you that it was a 20-year process to create the 2010 Constitution, at least. It was a people-led movement. It was very exciting. You have women sitting under trees and coming up with what are our rights going to be, and then telling lawyers, you guys go and write it up just the way we've told you. But the 2010 moment came with expanded rights. It redefined many things. It redefined being Kenyan, but in many ways it redefined the space of diasporas. Why? It created for the first time dual citizenship. Suddenly, we couldn't think of you as a dissident anymore. We have to change our posture. Government must change its posture, its language, its understanding of its subjects or its citizens. Because now, just because you have moved to the Netherlands and are living and working in the Netherlands does not mean that you hate your motherland, right? So, and then this required that governments begin to change how we think about who our citizens are. But that 2010 Constitution came with many other things. Some of the right, of course, apart from the expanded freedoms and rights, for the first time, Kenyan women, Kenyan wives, could grant citizenship to foreign husbands. Right? Until that point, it only went the other way around, right? But now suddenly Kenyan wives could grant citizenship to foreign husbands. Again, the diaspora is expanding. It is growing. Kenyan women could, as of right, grant citizenship to their children born with a foreigner. And these children do not have to apply for, naturalization or whatever, but as of right, they are Kenyan citizens. So these are expanding rights. And many other things, like the right to vote in the diaspora and so on. Alongside that, you have stuff that's going on at the AU, where we are creating a new vision for the African diaspora, and other countries are beginning to do exciting things with their diaspora. What does this mean? In terms of posture, in terms of how government responds, how it views its citizens, then you begin to have a shift, right? Not dissidents, but citizens with rights in need of protection or facilitation, right? People to engage with, people you should have an engagement framework for. And that has changed how government sees the people in this room. We as a society have changed our own story about how we see the people in this room, how we serve them, what officers like myself are expected to do, where budgets and money go, and that kind of thing. But all of these things begin with a story. The stories we tell ourselves about who we are. It takes me back to where I began. When we have all gone and we have rested, what is the story of this diaspora going to be? What will this diaspora be known for in Kenya's story? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.